The sky was quiet, but the silence felt wrong. Luke Bennett stood on the observation deck of Nova 7, a deep space relay station orbiting high above Earth. He wasn't supposed to be up here tonight, but he needed air. Well, as much air as you could get in a sealed metal room with fake lights and recycled oxygen. He looked out at the stars and tried not to think about what was coming. Down on Earth, people were scared. Not just worried or nervous, scared in the way that made parents hug their kids tighter and soldiers write letters they might never send. The alien ships had been seen near Pluto 2 weeks ago. No message, no warning. Just massive, dark shapes, floating like shadows against the sun. They called themselves the Galactic Empire. Everyone knew that name now, even if it sounded like something from an old comic book. They had taken over dozens of worlds, maybe hundreds. And now they were here. Luke was only 29. He used to work on computer systems for the Space Command, making sure satellites didn't crash into each other. Now he was part of the last defense team on Nova 7, trying to keep the network alive while the world fell apart. "You're supposed to be on duty," said a voice behind him. He turned to see Rebecca Langston walking in. She was older than him, mid-30s with tired eyes and a coffee cup in her hand. She was one of the best astrophysicists on the station, and also one of the few people who still talked to Luke like a normal human being. "I needed a break," he said. "We don't get breaks anymore." She joined him by the window, looking down at the blue planet below. "Did you see the latest scans?" she asked. Luke nodded. "Yeah, they're moving closer." "Not just moving," she said. "They're scanning us." "What do you mean?" "They're not just watching. They're reading us. Our signals, our energy use, our tech. They want to know what we are before they decide what to do with us." Luke frowned. "So we're not just on their list. We're under a microscope." "Exactly," she said. "And if they think we're a threat, they'll wipe us out before we can say hello." That thought hung between them like a weight. Earth's governments had tried to talk. They sent messages in every language, offered peace, trade, anything. But the aliens didn't respond. They just kept watching. Space Command had a plan. They were trying to organize a global defense, but most of the military was already broken. Satellites were falling silent. Radio towers were going offline, and the first alien ship hadn't even landed yet. Luke looked back at the planet. From up here, everything seemed okay. The lights still shined. The oceans still moved. But he knew better. Cities were preparing for war. Families were hiding, and some places had already started evacuating civilians into underground bunkers. "Do you think we have a chance?" he asked quietly. Rebecca didn't answer right away. She sipped her coffee and stared at the stars. "I think we have a choice," she said finally. "We can either wait for them to decide our fate, or we can show them who we are before they make that call." Luke blinked. "What do you mean?" "We've been reacting since day one, hiding, hoping, waiting. But what if we gave them something they weren't expecting? What if we showed them more than fear?" He looked at her like she'd grown a second head. "You want to talk to them again?" "No," she said. "I want to tell them something bigger than a plea for peace. Something that shows what humanity really is." Luke shook his head. "They haven't responded to anything we've sent so far. Why would they care about another message?" "Because this one won't ask for mercy," she said. "It will warn them." Luke didn't understand at first, but then he saw the fire in her eyes, the kind of fire that comes when someone has nothing left to lose. "You're serious," he said. "Dead serious." For the first time in days, Luke felt something other than fear. Not hope exactly, but something close to it. Maybe humanity couldn't fight back, maybe they couldn't win, but maybe, just maybe, they could still say something worth remembering. "Okay," he said after a long pause. "How do we start?" Rebecca smiled slightly. "First, we need to hack into every satellite, probe, and antenna we can find. Then, we upload everything: music, art, books, history, everything that makes us who we are. And then, she said, looking straight at him, We blasted across the galaxy, not as a cry for help, but as a final warning. Luke swallowed hard. It sounded crazy, impossible. But somehow he believed it could work. And maybe, just maybe, it was the only thing left worth doing. The diplomatic team left from Cape Canaveral under a sky filled with clouds and hope that no one really believed in. They were the best minds humanity could offer. Scientists, linguists, soldiers trained to stay calm. Their mission was simple. On paper, make contact, open communication, find out what the aliens wanted. They called themselves the Galactic Empire, but no one knew what that meant. Did they want slaves, resources, revenge for something humans hadn't even done yet? Luke. Bennett watched the launch from Nova 7's control room. He wasn't part of the mission, just another face behind the glass, hands in his pockets, heart heavy like a stone. Beside him stood Rebecca Langston, arms crossed, eyes locked on the screen as the shuttle climbed into orbit. "Do you think they'll talk?" Luke asked. "Maybe," she said. "But not the way we want." The alien flagship hovered above Mars, massive and silent. It had been there for days, unmoving, watching. Now, the human delegation approached it slowly, broadcasting peace messages in every known frequency. There was no response. Then came the silence. The last signal from the team was short, broken up by static. Something about entering the ship. Then nothing. No more voices. No more beacons. No return path. Down on Earth, people waited. Governments held emergency meetings. Military units stood ready. But no one knew what had happened. Back at Nova 7, Luke tried to keep working. He ran system checks, rebooted failing nodes, helped patch up the global comms network. But all the while, his mind kept going back to those final seconds before the signal cut. What did they see in there? He found Rebecca in the science bay, staring at data streams scrolling across 3 different screens. "Did we get anything?" he asked. She didn't look away. "Not much, but enough." She pulled up a file. It showed the energy readings from the alien ship during the time of contact. "This isn't normal scanning," she said. "They're not just looking at us, they're reading us, our tech, our biology, our behavior. They're trying to figure out if we're worth keeping or wiping out." Luke swallowed hard. "So we're being tested? Or judged?" she said quietly. He stared at the screen. "How do we look?" Rebecca looked tired. Like scared animals, unprepared, divided, weak. Those words hit harder than he expected. "We're not weak," he said. "No," she agreed. "But we haven't shown them that yet." The next day, the alien fleet moved. Ships that had floated silently near Pluto began to shift. They lined up, slow and terrifying, and pointed toward Earth. It wasn't an invasion, not yet, but it was a message. "We are coming." Panic spread fast. Cities shut down. Power grids failed. Some people stayed home, praying it would pass. Others fled inland, hoping the sea would protect them. Luke and Rebecca worked nonstop. They tried to warn as many stations as possible. They sent out alerts, encrypted warnings, backup plans. But most of it got lost in the noise. And then came the first strike. A single beam of light, falling from the sky like fire. It hit the Pacific defense grid. Communications went dark. Satellites exploded. Radar systems burned out. Humanity had never seen a weapon like this. Luke watched the footage from a base in California. The beam struck with no warning. A flash, then gone. But the damage was instant. Towers melted, ships sank, thousands died. "This isn't war," he whispered. "This is execution." Rebecca didn't answer. She just kept typing, sending data wherever she could. "We need to move faster," she said. "If we wait any longer, there won't be anyone left to send a message to." Luke nodded. He felt sick, but he pushed it down. Fear wouldn't help. "Anyone now?" "What do we do?" he asked. "We start collecting everything," she said. "Every song, every book, every film, every photo. We upload it all. We don't beg them to stop. We show them who we are before they erase us." Luke looked at her. "You really think that will change anything?" "I don't know. she admitted. But I know this. We can't let them decide what we were without giving them the truth. He thought about the people on Earth. The ones hiding, the ones dying, the ones still holding on to hope. Okay, he said. Where do we start? Rebecca smiled slightly. With the oldest signal we ever sent. She opened a file labeled Project Echo. Inside was a list of old transmissions, NASA broadcasts, Vatican prayers, amateur radio calls, even music. From the 1960s. We've been speaking into the void for decades, she said. Now we just need to speak louder. Luke took a deep breath. The world was ending. But maybe, just maybe, humanity could still say something worth hearing. Together, they got to work. While the sky burned and the planet fell into darkness, two people started building a message that might live forever. The first wave hit hard. It came from the sky like a storm. Not rain or lightning, but fire. Beams of energy fell across the Pacific defense grid, destroying satellites, radar stations, and command centers in seconds. Thousands died before they even knew what was happening. Luke Bennett watched it all unfold from Nova 7. He saw the feeds go dark one by one. The base in California, the relay station over Hawaii, the deep-sea listening posts near Japan. Everything went silent. They're cutting us off, Rebecca said, her voice tight with fear. They don't want us to talk. Luke didn't answer. His hands were shaking. He had worked with some of those people, talked to them on comms, shared coffee in the break room. Now they were gone. Down on Earth, chaos spread fast. Cities shut down. Power grids failed. Governments tried to organize, but most leaders were dead or hiding. The military tried to fight back, but their weapons were too slow, too weak. There was no defense against something that could strike from space with no warning. Luke and Rebecca stayed at their posts for days. They rerouted signals through old satellites, sent emergency codes to surviving bases, tried to keep the network alive, but they knew it wouldn't last. Then came the order. Nova 7 received a final transmission from what was left of United Nations Space Command. It was short, direct, and final. All personnel are to report to Denver International Airport. Fallback Facility Alpha is active. This is our last chance. Luke read the message twice before speaking. We're leaving? Rebecca nodded. Looks like it. They didn't ask questions. They packed what they could, data drives, tools, backup systems, and boarded a transport shuttle. They weren't alone. Other scientists, engineers, and techs joined them. All survivors. All running, the trip to Earth was rough. Alien ships hovered above major cities, scanning, watching. The sky was filled with smoke. The ground was filled with silence. When they landed at Denver, they found a war zone. The airport was half destroyed, runways cracked, terminals burned. But beneath it all, deep underground, the fallback facility still worked. It had been built decades ago just in case, a hidden bunker with enough power, food, and tech to last years. Now it was humanity's last command center. Luke stepped inside and felt the air press down on him. It was cool, dry, and quiet. The lights flickered as the system booted up. People moved fast, setting up workstations, restoring comms, trying to find anyone else still alive. Rebecca pulled up a map. Red dots showed where human forces still held out. There weren't many. We need help, she said. Luke looked around. Who's left to help us? Maybe nobody, she said. But we still have a job to do. They met Carlos Ortiz in the main control room. He used to be a Marine. Now he was in charge of security. He was tall, scarred, and tired. You two must be the ones working on the message, he said, looking at Luke and Rebecca. That's right, Rebecca said. Carlos nodded. Good, because we're not going to last long. He pointed to a live feed showing alien movement over Antarctica. More ships, more weapons. They're not just taking over, he said. They're cleaning up. Luke swallowed hard. Cleaning up what? Everything. Rebecca turned back to her screen. Then we need to move faster. Just then, Another figure walked in. Megan Tyler. Hacker. Former government contractor. Blacklisted for exposing secrets. She looked at Luke and smiled. Heard you needed someone who can get into places they don't want us to be. Luke raised an eyebrow. You still know how to break into secure networks? Megan smirked. I helped build half of them. Breaking in is easy. Rebecca clapped her hands together. Then let's get to work. They started rebuilding the global communication web. Megan tapped into old satellite relays. Carlos got them access to military servers still online. Luke handled data flow. Rebecca coordinated the message. They had one goal: send the echo signal before it was too late. But time was running out. Outside, the world was burning. Inside, 4 people began building a message that might outlive them all. The world was falling apart, but inside the underground bunker beneath Denver International Airport, something new was taking shape. Luke Bennett sat at a dusty workstation, surrounded by blinking lights and old screens. Cables ran across the floor like veins, connecting broken systems to ones that still worked. Rebecca Langston stood behind him, eyes glued to a live feed showing alien movement above the ruins of Washington, D.C. Megan Tyler typed fast, her fingers dancing over a keyboard like she was playing a song only she could hear. Carlos Ortiz leaned against the wall watching them both, arms crossed, face hard. We're running out of time, Rebecca said. They're not just moving, they're deciding what to keep and what to erase. Luke looked up. You think they're choosing which cities to destroy next? Maybe, she said. Or maybe they already decided. We're just waiting for the hammer to fall. Silence filled the room. No one had much hope left. But they kept working anyway. Megan finally spoke without looking away from her screen. I got into an old NASA archive. It's buried under layers of dead code, but I found something interesting. What kind of something? Luke asked. Old messages, she said. Transmissions we sent into space decades ago. Voyager probes, radio signals, even music. Rebecca walked over. You mean the stuff from the 70s, the golden records? Yeah, Megan said. And more. Turns out, we've been shouting into the dark for a long time. Some of it might have already reached other stars. Luke leaned forward. So what if we do the same, but louder? Rebecca's eyes lit up. Not just louder. Bigger. Carlos frowned. I don't follow. Rebecca turned to the group. We can't fight them. We can't stop them. But we can make sure they know who we were before we're gone. Megan grinned. You want to send a message? Not just any message, Rebecca said. A final message. Everything we are. Our history, our culture, our warnings. We blast it across the galaxy through every satellite, probe, and antenna we can find. Luke nodded slowly. Project Echo. Carlos looked between them. You're saying we give them a piece of humanity instead of a surrender note? Exactly, Rebecca said. We show them we weren't just scared animals waiting to die. We were builders, thinkers, fighters. We loved. We dreamed, we made things that mattered. Megan tapped a few keys. It's risky. We'll need every signal booster we can find. Most of our satellites are down, but some are still floating around Mars and Jupiter. If we piggyback off them, we can reach deep space. Luke finished. Carlos rubbed his chin. Okay, let's say this works. You send your message, then what? Rebecca looked at him. Then maybe someone, somewhere will remember us. Maybe someone else out there will see what we were. And maybe, if they ever meet the Empire, they'll know. These humans didn't go quietly. Luke stood up. We start gathering everything. Music, books, films, photos. Anything that shows who we are. Megan smirked. I can pull old files from university servers, museum archives, even personal blogs. If it's digital, I can find it. Rebecca added, we also need real-time data, footage from the war, voices of survivors, even the last moments of people on Earth. Luke swallowed hard. That means going into the field. Carlos nodded. I can get you access to the last remaining relay towers, but it won't be easy. Nothing is, Rebecca said. They split the work. Megan stayed behind to dig into the archives. Rebecca handled data compression and encryption. Luke worked on signal routing. Carlos prepared for the dangerous trips outside. Before they left, Luke looked around the room. "This is all we have left," he said. "Our voices." Rebecca put a hand on his shoulder. "Then let's make sure they're heard." Outside, the sky was dark with smoke, cities burned, the ground shook with distant explosions, but below it all, in a hidden bunker, 4 people began building a message that would live longer than their planet. They called it Project Echo. It wasn't a weapon, it wasn't a shield, but it was a warning. And when the time came, they would send it across the stars, not as a cry for help, but as a final act of defiance. Humanity was ending, but its voice would never be silenced. The plan was set. The message was ready to go. But there was one problem: time, and time was running out fast. Luke Bennett stood near the edge of a broken runway at what used to be Denver International Airport. Now it was just cracked concrete, smoke-filled skies, and the distant sound of explosions far away. Carlos Ortiz crouched beside him, checking his gear. They were getting ready to move. Their mission was simple: reach the alien relay node over Antarctica and destroy it. Not because it was easy, because it had to be done. Rebecca Langston and Megan Tyler were back inside the underground bunker, working on finalizing the echo signal. They had gathered everything: music from the 1960s, photos of families, videos of cities before they burned, even the voices of children saying goodbye to their parents. It was all being compressed into a single file that would be sent across the galaxy. But to make sure it got through, they needed time. And to buy that time, someone had to slow down the Empire's communications network. That's where Carlos came. And he wasn't just security anymore. He was the only one who could lead a team into enemy territory and come back alive. He had picked a small group of fighters, most of them former soldiers with nothing left to lose. They didn't expect to survive. Luke wasn't a soldier. He was just a tech guy who used to fix satellites for a living. But he still went with them. Not to fight, but to help with the signal jammers. If they could shut down the relay node, even for a few hours, Rebecca and Megan could send the message before the aliens noticed. As the transport plane taxied behind them, Carlos looked at Luke. "You don't have to do this," he said. Luke nodded. "I know, but I want to." Carlos studied him for a moment. Then he gave a small nod. "All right, just stay behind us. And if things go bad, run." They boarded the plane. It was old, barely holding together, but it flew. The pilot was a woman named Tina, once a cargo pilot, now one of the last people flying anything. She didn't say much, just gave them a thumbs up and took off. The flight was long and cold. Outside the windows, the world below was dark. Fires burned in the distance. Abandoned cities sat silent under the stars. No signs of life, just ruins. When they reached Antarctica, the sky was filled with alien ships. They dropped in fast. Parachutes opened. Wind screamed. Ice stretched out beneath them like a frozen desert. They landed hard. Carlos was up first, motioning for the others to follow. Luke hit the ground and rolled, pain shooting through his leg. He ignored it and kept moving. The relay node was ahead, a massive black tower pulsing with strange blue light. It was surrounded by alien drones, scanning the sky, sending data back to the fleet. This was it. They moved silently, staying low. Tina stayed in the plane, ready to pick them up if they made it back. The first drone exploded quietly. One of Carlos's men took it out with a stolen alien weapon. They kept going. Then the alarm started. Lights flashed. Machines whirred. Something had seen them. "Move!" Carlos shouted. They ran. Bullets tore through the air. Energy beams cut through the snow. One of their team went down. Then another. Luke ducked behind a rock, heart pounding. He wasn't built for this. He was supposed to sit behind a desk, not dodge death in a frozen wasteland. Carlos reached the base of the tower and pulled out a charge. "We've got 60 seconds. Luke scrambled forward, helping place the last jammer. The system buzzed as it connected. Lights blinked red, then green. "Done," Luke yelled. "Get back." Carlos shouted. They ran as the explosion tore through the night. The tower cracked. Sparks flew. The alien signals flickered and died. Then silence. For a moment they thought they had made it. Then the sky lit up. Ships above began to move. They had been seen. Carlos grabbed Luke's arm. We need to go. Now. They sprinted toward the extraction point. The snow was slick with blood. 2 more of their team were gone. Tina's plane swooped in, landing fast. The ramp dropped. Come on, she shouted. They ran. Carlos pushed Luke on board first, then himself. The plane lifted off. Below them, the relay node burned. Above them, the sky was clear. Back in Denver, Rebecca and Megan would have their window, and Luke knew, even if they didn't make it back, the message would go out. Humanity's voice would live on, even if its body did not. Back at the underground bunker beneath Denver International Airport, Rebecca Langston sat in front of a bank of flickering screens. Sweat ran down her temple. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Beside her, Megan Tyler was already syncing. The final data into the echo signal. The relay node over Antarctica was down. Luke and Carlos had done their job. Now it was up to them. Rebecca stared at the countdown on the screen. 120 seconds until full upload began. She knew it wouldn't be long before the aliens noticed the missing signal and sent something to fix it. They had minutes. Maybe less. Megan leaned close. I've got all the files lined up. Music, photos, videos, books, even the last messages from people still alive. Rebecca nodded. Good. We're not just sending data. We're sending us. Megan gave a tired smile. Then let's make sure they never forget us. They worked fast. The signal needed to go out through every satellite, probe, and antenna still active. Most were dead, but some still floated near Mars, Jupiter, even deep space. If they could piggyback off those, the message would travel farther than any human ever had. Luke's voice came through the comms. Static filled the line, but his words were clear. We made it back online. You've got time, but not much. Rebecca tapped a few keys. Start the upload. Lights blinked. Servers hummed. Data streamed across broken networks, jumping from one dying system to another. The echo signal was moving. Megan added the final layer. The warning. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a plea for mercy. It was a truth. If you destroy us, know we were not weak. We fought. We created. We loved. And if you are like us, remember, we warned you. Beneath that, they looped an old song, John Lennon's Imagine. Soft piano notes played through the speakers as images scrolled across the screens. Children laughing, cities glowing under night skies, soldiers hugging loved ones, scientists looking up at stars. All of it was humanity. All of it was being sent into the void. Outside, the world burned. Alien ships hovered above what was left of Earth's major cities. Communication towers fell. Power grids died. But deep below the surface, 2 women kept working. Carlos entered the room, breathing hard. Blood stained his sleeve. He looked at the screen. Is it going? He asked. Rebecca didn't look away. Yes, and it's almost done. He walked over, watching the images scroll by. A child drawing with crayons, a couple dancing in the rain, a farmer harvesting crops, a teacher writing on a chalkboard. This is who we were, he said quietly. Megan hit a final key. The upload bar reached 100%. Done, she whispered. Rebecca stood up. Now we broadcast. She pressed enter. The signal shot out. From Nova 7's last orbiting dish, from Voyager 1 and 2, from forgotten satellites circling Jupiter, from hidden ground arrays buried in the mountains. The message was gone, already flying beyond the moon, beyond Mars, out into the stars. For the first time since the invasion began, Rebecca smiled. They'll hear us, she said, wherever they are. Megan wiped tears from her eyes. They'll know we weren't just victims. Carlos crossed his arms. They'll know we mattered. Silence filled the room. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of purpose. Above them, the sky darkened further. Explosions echoed in the distance. The Empire was closing in. Soon this place would fall like everything else. But the message was out, and nothing, not war, not fire, not even time, could take that back. Luke entered the room, limping slightly. He looked exhausted. When he saw the screen, he stopped. "Did we do it?" he asked. Rebecca turned to him. "Yeah, we did." He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Then he walked over and sat beside Megan. "What now?" he asked. Rebecca looked at the screen one last time. "Now we wait, and hope someone out there is listening." Megan smirked. "Or maybe, just maybe, they'll wish they hadn't." Outside, the world was ending. Inside, 4 people had given humanity its final voice. And somewhere far beyond the stars, the echo of Earth had begun to play. The sky above Earth was no longer blue. It was dark with smoke and fire. Alien ships floated like ghosts above the ruins of cities that once pulsed with life. Washington, D.C., London, Tokyo, Moscow, gone, burned from above with weapons that turned steel and stone into ash in seconds. Luke Bennett stood on the observation deck of Nova 7, watching the planet burn. He had seen the end coming for days, maybe weeks. But now it was real. Not just in data streams or warning signals, but in flames. Rebecca. Langston stood beside him, silent. Her face was tired, eyes red. She hadn't slept in days. None of them had. "Do you think they got it?" Luke asked quietly. Rebecca didn't look away from the screen showing the final upload status. "Yes," she said. "We sent it far enough, fast enough." Luke nodded. He wanted to believe her. He did. But the silence between stars felt heavier than ever. Below them, Denver International Airport was gone. Carlos Ortiz and Megan Tyler had stayed behind to protect the last uplink station. They knew what was coming. They knew there was no escape. But they held the line long enough for the message to go out. Now, Nova 7 was the last human outpost in orbit. Luke thought about Carlos. A man who used to be a soldier, then a protector, then a hero. He had died holding a broken radio, trying to send one last signal to anyone still listening. Megan had been beside him, hacking into dead networks, rerouting power, buying time with code and courage. She had laughed even as the walls shook. She had joked about aliens not understanding rock music. They were both gone now, and all that was left was this station. And them. Luke looked at Rebecca. "What do we do now?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she opened a file labeled Final Log. She started typing. "We record what happened," she said. "Everything. The war, the message, the people who fought. If someone finds us, if anyone finds us, we need to make sure they know who we were." Luke sat down at another console. He pulled up old video feeds, saved files, personal messages. He found a short clip from a girl in Chicago. She had taped a drawing to her window, stick figures holding hands around a blue circle. He played it once, then again. Outside the station, more alien ships arrived. They moved with cold precision, scanning the surface, confirming what was already obvious. Earth was finished. Not every person was dead. Some survived in hidden bunkers, deep underground, scattered across the oceans. But they wouldn't last long. Food would run out, air would thin, and soon, nothing would remain. Luke stared at the planet below. "Do you think they'll come up here?" he asked. Rebecca kept typing. "Maybe, but by then, we'll be done." He looked at her. "You're not planning to survive either," she finally looked at him. "What's left down there, up here? We've done what we came to do. The message is out. Everything else, it doesn't matter." Luke swallowed hard. He had never been brave like her, never believed in something so much that he was willing to die for it, but now maybe he did. He opened a new file, titled it Humanity. Inside, he added everything he could find: photos, videos, voice recordings, even simple text files, stories of people who lived before the war, poems, jokes, dreams. He added a message of his own. This is Luke Bennett. If you're reading this, we're probably gone. But don't remember us as victims. Remember us as fighters. We lost the war, but we made sure our voices lived on. He closed the file and sent it to the main archive. Rebecca stood up. I'm going to the command deck. I want to see it happen. Luke followed her. The alien fleet was moving faster now, targeting remaining military sites, research labs, even empty buildings. They weren't fighting anymore. They were cleaning up. Rebecca leaned against the control panel. Do you think anyone will hear us? Luke looked at the stars beyond the burning planet. I hope so. She smiled slightly. Me too. They stayed there for hours, watching, waiting, remembering. As Nova 7 drifted through space, the last light of Earth flickered. Below, a world ended. But somewhere far beyond the stars, its final message was already playing. Hundreds of years passed. The stars stayed the same, but everything else changed. On a distant mining colony orbiting a planet called Helios 9, a young technician named Jess Montgomery was checking old data from a comet that had just passed through the outer system. It was routine work, scanning for ice deposits, tracking radiation levels, making sure nothing dangerous was heading toward the colony. But then something strange showed up. Buried deep in the ice core sample was a signal. Not natural, not random. It was designed. Jess ran the data again and again. Each time the pattern became clearer. It wasn't just a message, it was a library, music, images, stories, voices. It all came from one place, a long dead world known as Earth. She didn't know what to think at first. Her supervisor told her to ignore it. Old human junk, he called it. Not worth our time. But Jess couldn't let it go. She spent nights decoding the files, frame by frame, word by word. She watched videos of people laughing, crying, dancing. She heard music unlike anything she had ever heard before. Soft songs, loud songs, voices filled with pain and joy. And then she read the final message. If you destroy us, know we were not weak. We fought, we created, we loved. And if you are like us, remember, we warned you. Jess sat back in her chair, heart pounding. These people were gone. Their world was dust. But their voice still traveled across space, and someone, somewhere, was listening. On another world far from Helios 9, a diplomat named Aaron Vell stood before a council of leaders from the Alari Federation. They were a peaceful species, known for avoiding war, for talking instead of fighting. Aaron had found the echo message buried in an old probe drifting near Uranus. He had brought it home, translated what he could, and now he stood before his people, ready to share what he had learned. He played the video. Faces appeared on the screen. Men, women, children, some old, some young, all gone now. He played the music, the art, the stories, and when it ended, there was silence. One of the elders finally spoke. They knew they would die. Yes, Aaron said, but they chose to speak anyway. Another leader asked, why show this to us? Because we need to remember, Aaron said. Remember that not all species fall silent because they deserve to. Some speak until the end, and we should listen. The room stayed quiet for a long time. Then, one by one, the leaders nodded. They added the echo message to the Galactic Archive, not as a warning, not as a weapon, but as a memory. Farther out, beyond the edge of known space, a small research team picked up the signal bouncing off the surface of a dead moon. They weren't part of any empire. They weren't soldiers or diplomats. They were just scientists looking for signs of life. When they played the message, they didn't understand everything. The language was old, the culture was foreign, but they understood the feeling. Grief, hope, defiance. They shared it with their university. Students studied it. Artists copied its style. Musicians tried to recreate its sounds. It spread, slowly, quietly, like seeds carried by wind. Back on Helios 9, Jess stood alone in her lab, watching the night sky through a small window. She thought about the humans, how they had lost everything, how they had been erased from the stars, but not forgotten. Someone always remembered, always listened, always learned. She opened the message one last time, and as she read the final line, she whispered it aloud. "We warned you." Then she smiled. Maybe. No one would ever meet the galactic empire that destroyed Earth, but if they did, they would know that humanity had not gone quietly. They had screamed into the void, and the void had answered. Time passed like wind through dust. Civilizations rose. Civilizations fell. Stars burned bright, then faded into silence. The galactic empire that had destroyed Earth was long gone now. Its cities crumbled. Its ships rusted in orbit around dead worlds. Its name was spoken only in history books and old warnings. But the message still traveled, not from satellites, not from stations, from memory. Across the stars, fragments of the echo signal were found again and again, hidden in ice, bouncing off forgotten moons, drifting through abandoned space stations. It never died. And somewhere, always, someone listened. On a world called Virelia, a young student named Nia sat in a quiet library filled with soft lights and floating screens. She was studying ancient cultures for her final exam when she found it, a file labeled Humanity. She tapped it open. Images filled the screen, people dancing, children laughing, cities glowing under night skies. Music played softly in the suck. Background, strange notes, unfamiliar rhythms, but full of feeling. Her teacher walked over. "That's the human archive," he said. "You don't have to study it for class." Nia looked up. "Why not?" He smiled. "Because it's not about war or politics. It's about what they were." She watched a video of a man planting seeds in a field, another of a woman painting a picture, a child writing letters to someone who would never read them. "They didn't survive," she whispered. "No," the teacher said, "but they left something behind." Nia read the final message. "If you destroy us, know we were not weak. We fought, we created, we loved. And if you are like us, remember, we warned you." Tears welled in her eyes. "Who were they?" she asked. The teacher looked at the screen. A species that knew they were going to die. And instead of hiding, they made sure their voice would live forever. Nia closed her eyes. "I want to learn more." "Then start here," he said, tapping the screen. "Start with what they gave us." Far away on a trade ship passing through the outer systems, a pilot named Darrow found the message buried in an old navigation log. He laughed at first, thought it was some kind of joke, until he heard the song, John Lennon's Imagine, echoed through his cabin as images of Earth played on his screen. Blue oceans, green forests, people holding hands, crying, building things with their hands. He sat there for hours watching. When he landed at the next station, he shared the file with everyone he met. "This is important," he told them. "This isn't just history. This is a warning." Some listened, some didn't care, but the message kept moving. In a deep space research lab orbiting a dying sun, a team of scientists worked late into the cycle. One of them, a linguist named Ellen, pulled up the human files again. She had studied them for years. "Do you think anyone else will ever find it?" one of her co-workers asked. "Someone always does," she said. "And every time they do, they learn something new." She opened a file and read the last lines aloud. "We warned you." She smiled sadly. "Maybe nobody will ever meet the Empire again," she said. "Maybe no one ever will." But then she added, "But if they do, they'll know what happened. They'll know who we were. The message was out there, in the dark, in the stars, in the silence between worlds, and as long as someone remembered, humanity was never truly gone." Back on Virelia, Nia stood outside under a sky filled with strange stars. She thought about the humans, how they had lost everything, how they had faced the end with nothing but fear, hope, and fire in their hearts, and How even then they had chosen to speak, to warn, to teach, to say, "We were here." She looked up at the stars and whispered to the night, "Thank you." And somewhere, far beyond the edge of known space, the echo of humanity played on.